All right, so we're setting off in the Charger. This is one I'm really excited about driving. The one that I have here is the V6, so we'll have to see if it's missing any power or if there's anything left to be desired. I'll let you know, but I'm still looking forward to it. I mean, it's a sedan, but it's a sports sedan at the same time, so it's gonna be a lot of fun. So some initial impressions that I have, obviously this thing feels really heavy. I think it's about 4,000 pounds in weight. So it does feel like it has a luxurious ride, so to say. It has a sport comfort kind of ride, but because of its weight, you really don't feel any bumps. I mean, this ride is so smooth. I can't even emphasize it. I mean, it's like you're just gliding across ice. Another thing is the steering feel in this car. It's got a pretty good weight to it. I mean, you can play around with the wheel a little bit, and I mean, it'll move like it's a sports car, but it's just comfortable enough to where it's not trying to jar itself out of position all the time. Again, it's that sport comfort that it's going for with the Charger. Another thing that you note is the visibility. So this is a big car, right? It's a big car, and there's a lot of different ways to see out of it. The visibility is awesome. What is really cool though is in the front, you're gonna look over a hood just a little bit, but it's enough to where it's kind of cool, actually. You're like, man, I got this big engine under there. The hood has to be a little bit higher to fit it in there. So, all in all, it's an aggressive kind of vehicle. It's a lot of fun to be in, actually. Now, if we talk about handling for this car, for how big it is, I mean, you would expect there to be just a tremendous amount of body roll, like those old Ford Tauruses that are like boats. Those things, every time you take a turn, it feels like the entire car is gonna flip over. This thing is about that size, weighs a little bit more, but the suspension setup is fantastic. I mean, you take a turn and this thing is just planted. I mean, you feel it a little bit of roll. I mean, you're gonna have to because it's meant to be a little bit more comfortable. The springs aren't gonna be rock solid, but little to no body roll in this car. I guess you would kind of expect that from a sports car, but it's kind of hard to ask of that in a sports sedan. I mean, the Challenger is another story. I haven't personally driven that one yet, but I feel like it would handle a little bit more like a sports car. This one's gonna be your family sedan. So I mean, if you have a family, you should probably look into getting this one, because then the fun is not over, that's for sure. It's definitely big enough to carry 4 full-grown adults, if that's a concern. There's plenty of space in here, lots of air, good features. I mean, it could absolutely be a family car with a little bit more of a punch. Hopefully up here I can get a little acceleration, and I'm kind of looking forward to pressing this engine down a little bit. If I remember from the last Charger, the acceleration in it was actually pretty good. Even though it's a 4,000 pound car, somehow they managed to get it just right. This one is going to be rear-wheel drive, so in the wintertime, I'm not for sure how that's going to handle. I'm assuming because of the weight, everything will be fine. You have the heavy weight of the car, and then you also have modern traction control systems. Those will probably help take care of you in the wintertime. All right, how about a little acceleration here? Let's turn it, straighten out, and oh crap! Wow. Okay, so it gets up to speed pretty well. All right, so right now I'm actually cruising on the highway in the Charger. The reason I got it is to take a road trip. So basically I can give some good impressions on how it drives on the highway and if it's good for long road trips, all of that kind of matter. And really initial impressions on the highway, it's really quiet in here. And you can hear it as well as I can right now on the camera. I mean, it sounds like you're going 30 miles an hour. I'm actually going 75. Also, it feels like the throttle response is a little bit better on the highway as well. That came as a little bit of a surprise because in the city it seemed like it lagged a little bit, but when you're on the highway, if you need some passing power, you put your foot down and it'll downshift 2 gears almost automatically, which sometimes that actually gets a little bit annoying because you're just trying to go a little bit faster, and then you put the pedal down a little bit and all of a sudden it's, if you can hear that, it just wants to go. I don't really want it to get up to 4,000 RPMs because then you're burning a lot of gas, but it is what it is. Transmission does act a little strangely sometimes. I'm pretty sure it's a 9-speed automatic, so it will hunt. It hunts for gears a little bit, or it'll sit in a gear sometimes and you'll hear the engine revving a little bit and you're like, okay, come on, shift. I've noticed the driving position in this car, it's comfortable. The seats, they've got good bolstering, like I said. They hold you in really well. They're actually meant for all body types. I'm 6'5", 210 pounds, so a little bit on the bigger side, and they hold me in really well. The leg room in the front's really good, headroom, and you can see it. I got plenty of space up in here. So gas mileage on this, they rate it for 30 on the highway. Right now, I've been taking it a little bit easier on the car on the highway, and if I can scroll to it real quick, my average is 36.8. I mean, that's me, you know, letting up down hills and going easy up hills. Actually just went to 37 because I'm going down a hill, but the gas mileage in this thing, if you go easy on it, that's tremendous. Those are 4-cylinder numbers. Like, that's a Toyota Camry, except it can do this. Yeah, there it goes. It's 36 now. But anyway, yeah, the gas mileage, I haven't seen that to be a problem at all. I mean, I'm gonna make it to my destination with more than enough gas, and that is spectacular. That's all the transmission too. The transmission's gonna let the engine work a lot less to keep it up to speed. I'll update you guys on what my real gas mileage is for the entire trip. I mean, I'm certain at some point I'll probably put on the cruise control and we'll see what the computer gets us. Probably a little bit less because it tries to keep the speed relatively constant, whether it's uphill or downhill. We'll have to see about that. I guess one more thing that I've noticed, I was talking about putting it into cruise control, but it's the pedal position, I don't know, it's kind of weird, but the pedal position almost feels really comfortable. Like, there's not a lot of effort that goes into pushing the pedal for the engine to move. For some reason, it feels like some pedals have a farther travel than this one does. So if you're actually trying to move, you have to push the pedal farther down. This one, you can give it a small tap and it'll start accelerating. It's actually really neat. Again, getting back to that ride comfort, I mean, this thing, it just glides. It's incredible. I did take some turns a little bit harder earlier though, and it does roll. I think there's a lot more body roll in this than there might be on the RT trim. I think the RT trim has more of a sporty suspension than this one does, but still, I mean, this thing just feels like it glides. It actually starts feeling lighter on its feet as you speed up. Not sure why that works. It feels heavier when you're going slower, and once you speed up, it feels like steering gets a little bit lighter, a little bit more responsive, and then it also feels like the car is almost lifting up a little bit, so it's softer and it just kind of floats. The V6, it offers plenty of power if you just are going to commute with this thing and you need some highway passing power. I think if you're going to do, you know, accelerations from a red light, it leaves a little bit to be desired. It doesn't really plant you in your seat. This engine's about 300 horsepower, but it's only 260 pound-feet of torque, so it's really not a torquey engine. You have to get to like 5,000 RPMs before you really feel that power really kick in. Then it kind of, you feel it kind of push you back a little bit. It does leave a little bit to be desired. So if you're a person who's going to be discontent with a car that's not a V8, you should probably get the RT trim. Wow, what's really weird about this car also is that it doesn't feel like you're ever going that fast. I don't know if it has to do with the weight, the size of the car, but you could be going 80 miles an hour and it feels like you're going 30. Alright, so now we're in the classic highway traffic. I guess we can see how this transmission behaves in traffic. Some transmissions get a little feisty when they're in traffic, so we'll see if this one stays smooth as it goes. One thing that I've noticed, the brake pedal is kind of heavy. I know it sounds weird, but the brake pedal after the stop and go, it's almost like it's kind of hard to push down. It might be the way that my foot has to go to reach it. It's a little bit farther away from the pedal than it probably could be. So we've been out of here for about 15 minutes. Transmission's been fine. It just revs up, and then when it feels like downshifting, it will. There's nothing really jerky about it, nothing aggressive. It's just kind of coasting through the traffic. So it definitely has my stamp of approval on traffic behavior. All right, so now it's been 20 minutes in traffic, and Google Maps is still convinced that it's just a 1-minute delay. All right, so we're back and we're moving again, kind of make up for some lost time. You know, it's hard to find things to complain about when you're in a Charger, but I really have to say I wish there was more torque on this V6 engine. I know that I definitely couldn't live with this one as my daily driver. I mean, it wouldn't quite do it for me. For some people, it's more than enough power, but whenever I hit the accelerator, I'm just waiting for it to kind of throw me back. I mean, I've driven the RT version of this, and I've driven an SRT, and this V6, it just doesn't have anything on those. I wish they could have maybe geared it a little bit better or added a little bit more torque to the engine. It would have made it probably a little bit more of an exciting V6 ride. But again, like I said, it's more than enough power for average driving. I mean, on the highway, you just need enough to keep your speed up and pass some people occasionally. I mean, it does that and a little bit more. I'm just, as an enthusiast, I just wish it would throw me into my seat. Alrighty, so I've been in the Charger here for a couple days, so now I'm actually ready to give you my full final impressions. So one of the good things about the car that I like is this. Wow. For a V6, it's pretty quick. I have to give it that. I did say that it was missing the torque that is usually pretty fun to have, but it's pretty quick. Alright, so the gas mileage of the car really complements the power of the engine. After running the car for about 2 days, my average on the highway was about 35 miles per gallon, which, if you really think about it, is fabulous numbers for a V6 engine, especially in a 4,000-pound car. City gas mileage, I think, was about 27 or 28, which still is pretty good for what it is. I'm back on the highway right now, and another thing that I like about it is how quiet it stays in here. I mean, even for a 5-hour car ride, it was quiet, the car stayed smooth, the air conditioning is really cold, there's a lot of space in here, the seats are really comfortable, they hold you in really well, they have a lot of good support for your arms and your lower back. I do like the center Infotainment Center as well. The Apple CarPlay has been really useful for all the navigation that I've needed to do. The maps pop right up. You've got your music that you can scroll through. That's in the center screen. And then also you have your controls, which it's really easy to access the heated seats. Problem is, it's summertime, so I didn't quite need them. So there were a couple of things that I didn't quite love about the Charger. The first would be some of the behaviors of the transmission. Sometimes it would feel like the 8-speed transmission, it would be hunting for gears, or it would just kind of hang up and then decide when it would want to downshift. Basically, you'd push the pedal in a little bit, it would shoot to about 4,000 RPMs, and then it would sit there, and you're just watching it. You hear it revving, and then all of a sudden it drops to the next gear, and then you just kind of go, oh, okay. Although the car does glide and it's a very, very smooth and comfortable ride with the weight and the suspension setup, one thing that I didn't really love is the suspension doesn't quite feel solid like a sport car, sport sedan should feel like. The suspension's a little bit soft, so when an individual spring hits some kind of a pothole or a little bump in the road, it almost feels like instead of just taking the impact and then bumping right back up into position, it'll almost exaggerate it a little bit to where it'll hit the bump and then the whole car will kind of flex around just a little bit. I'm more used to cars that'll take a bump and kind of hold their position the entire time in a stable way. It's a minor thing, but it is something that I noticed. So as concluding remarks, this is a car that I would definitely recommend to somebody who has to carry around a lot of people or has a long commute but still doesn't want to sacrifice a performing engine. They don't want an economy car that's just going to be kind of slow and boring, but it does give good fuel economy. This car is a mixture of both. You don't get the 39 miles per gallon that a 4-cylinder gives you, but I mean, you do get some smiles along the way. Okay, so obviously right now I am not in the Charger. I'm back in my own Jetta. It's a lot smaller in here. So I ended up being in a little bit of a hurry trying to get back, and somehow managed to completely forget to film an outro inside of the Charger. So I guess I'll just go ahead and do it here. Just a quick recap. It was a really good car for commuting. I think if you had to drive to work or you were going to take it on a long vacation, it would serve you really well in that regard. It was fun. It was a lot more power than anybody's going to need. The V6 was very healthy. The only gripe that I might have is it wouldn't really satisfy you as a sports car day by day. I think this turbocharged Jetta feels like it probably had more torque than that because it didn't have a very high torque number. I think it was 260 pound-feet and the car weighs like 4,000 pounds. So it really didn't throw you back all that much unless you accelerated from 0 miles per hour. But regardless, it serves the purpose of what Dodge was going for, and that was going to be a comfortable, powerful American sedan. And big, forgot to mention big. The car was huge. So anyway, thanks for stopping by and watching. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, and then subscribe for future content. Until next time.